Chapter 1. The man behind the mask. Luca Romano walked through the dimly lit streets of the city, his presence commanding even in silence. The cold night air bit at his skin, but he felt nothing. Every step echoed with the weight of his reputation. People whispered his name in fear and respect. Yet none of that reached the part of him that remained hollow. The enforcer was feared by many, admired by a few, but truly known by no one. He paused outside a small flower shop, its warm light spilling onto the cracked sidewalk. The scent of roses and lily drifted through the glass door, fragile and soothing. For a moment, Luca allowed himself to linger, drawn by something he could not name. Inside, a young woman moved gracefully, arranging blooms with a tenderness that seemed almost foreign to his world. Sofia Bellini glanced up and caught his gaze. Her eyes, soft and luminous, held a quiet curiosity that startled him. Luca rarely felt observed, let alone noticed. He expected judgment or fear, but her expression was different. She smiled gently, as if acknowledging him without fear, and something inside him shifted. He cleared his throat and stepped inside, careful to keep his movements calm. The warmth of the shop wrapped around him, and for a fleeting moment, the violence of his life felt distant. Sofia approached, her hands dusted with pollen, and greeted him with a voice as gentle as the petals surrounding them. "Can I help you?" she asked. Luca hesitated, his mind unaccustomed to ordinary conversation. He wanted to tell her nothing, to retreat into the shadows he knew so well, yet he found himself speaking. "I was passing by," he said simply. "The flowers caught my attention." Sofia smiled again, tilting her head slightly. "Flowers have a way of doing that," she said. There was no fear in her tone, no hesitation, only warmth. Luca felt a strange pull, a sensation he had not allowed himself in years. He nodded, glancing at the rows of blooms, each one vibrant against the muted light of the night outside. For the first time in a long time, he noticed beauty not tied to power or control. Sofia returned to her work, arranging a bouquet with delicate precision, and Luca found himself watching, captivated by her care and focus. Minutes passed like hours. When he finally spoke again, his voice was quieter, almost hesitant. "You make it look effortless." Sofia looked up, her smile brightening. "It takes practice and patience," she said. "Much like anything worth caring for." Luca felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. They were simple, yet they resonated with him in ways that nothing else had. He realized he had spent so long enforcing fear that he had forgotten how to appreciate gentleness. As he stepped back toward the door, he hesitated once more, reluctant to leave this small sanctuary. Sofia's eyes met his again, and in them, he saw something unfamiliar: hope. He walked back into the night, the cold pressing against him once more, but it no longer felt empty. Somewhere beneath the mask of the enforcer, a flicker of warmth had begun to grow, fragile and new, and Luca did not yet know what it might mean. Chapter 2. A fragile connection. Next morning, Luca found himself walking past the flower shop again. It was an unusual thought, even for him, and he chastised himself for it. Yet something about the warmth spilling from the window and the gentle way Sofia arranged her flowers drew him in, if by gravity. Inside, Sofia looked up and offered him a small, welcoming smile. Luca nodded, his usual stern expression softening ever so slightly. "Good morning," he said, his voice low but steady. "Good morning," she replied. "Did you sleep well?" The question was simple, ordinary, yet it made him pause. No one had ever asked about his well-being without an agenda. He considered answering honestly, and then settled on a simple nod. "I did," he said. "Thank you." Sofia returned to her flowers, and Luca wandered among the displays, noticing colors and textures he would have ignored before. The scent of lavender and jasmine filled the air, and for a brief moment, he allowed himself to feel calm. The chaos of his life seemed distant, replaced by a quiet curiosity that unsettled him. A bell tinkled at the door as a customer entered, and Sofia excused herself. Luca remained, observing the care with which she tied a ribbon around a bouquet. There was an elegance in her movements that contrasted sharply with the violence he knew he was capable of. When she returned, she handed him a small bloom. "Here," she said. "For you." Luca held the flower carefully, almost afraid he might break it. It was a small gesture, yet it carried a weight he could not explain. "Thank you," he said quietly. His fingers brushed hers for a moment, and he felt a strange warmth in that fleeting touch. They spoke more in the coming days, each encounter brief yet meaningful. Sofia asked about ordinary things, her questions gentle probes into a life Luca kept hidden. He answered with cautious honesty, revealing fragments of himself without realizing it. In turn, he began to notice the little things about her. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, the faint scent of roses she carried with her, the softness in her voice when she spoke about things she loved. Each detail chipped away at the armor he had spent years building, and Luca found himself wanting to linger in her presence longer than he should. Their connection grew quietly, without declarations or promises. It was built on small gestures, shared smiles, and the unspoken understanding that both were navigating a fragile space between fear and trust. Luca had never been known for patience, but with Sofia, he found himself willing to wait, willing to see where this fragile bond might lead. When he left the shop that evening, the sun casting long shadows across the streets, Luca felt something he had not felt in years. It was not power or control. It was a stirring of hope, a fragile flicker of possibility that perhaps, for the first time, someone might see the man behind the enforcer. Chapter 3. Shadows of the past. Luca returned to the streets of the city with a sense of unease he could not shake. His reputation as an enforcer was built on fear and precision, yet even he could not control every shadow that lingered behind him. The past he had worked so hard to bury was stirring again, and it threatened the fragile peace he felt with Sofia. That evening, Sofia closed her shop and stepped out into the cool air. She carried a small bouquet had requested, a simple arrangement of daisies and roses. She smiled softly at him, unaware of the storm approaching. "These are beautiful," he said, accepting the flowers. His hands were steady, but inside, tension coiled like a spring dot. Sofia tilted her head. "I hope they bring some joy," she said. "They are meant to remind us of small moments, even when life is hard." Her words lingered with him, but Luca could not let the warmth of the moment blind him. His world had no room for softness, and anyone close to him was always at risk. The mere act of caring made him vulnerable, and vulnerability had always been a luxury he could not afford. Later that night, Luca received news that unsettled him. A deal gone wrong in one of the territories he oversaw had put a family friend of Sofia's in danger. The thought of her being involved, even indirectly, made his chest tighten. He had always kept people at arm's length, yet the idea of harm coming to her stirred something protective, primal and terrifying. He spent the night pacing his apartment, planning and calculating, as he often did when danger approached. His mind replayed every interaction with Sofia, every smile and gesture that had begun to soften the edges of his life. He realized he could not abandon her to the shadows his world created, yet he feared that any attempt to protect her might draw her deeper into the darkness he carried. The next day, Luca arrived at the flower shop earlier than usual. Sofia was arranging a display of lilac, her hands steady and calm. She looked up and noticed his intensity immediately. "Is everything all right?" she asked, her voice gentle but concerned. Luca studied her for a moment, the contrast between her light and his shadow stark in his mind. "There are things I need to take care of," he said carefully. "It is nothing for you to worry about." Sofia nodded, but her eyes did not leave his face. Luca sensed her unease, and it struck him how much he wanted to shield her from the danger he could not escape. He wanted to keep her close, yet he also wanted to protect her from the world he belonged to. As he walked away that evening, the city felt heavier than usual. The shadows of his past had begun to reach into the present, threatening the fragile bond he had with Sofia. He knew he could not ignore them, but he also could not stop himself from thinking of her, from imagining a life where her light might remain untarnished. For the first time in years, Luca understood that his choices would no longer affect only himself. Someone else's safety and happiness now rested in his hands, and he realized that love, even the faintest flicker of it, was both a gift and a risk he could not deny. Chapter 4. Moments of light. Morning sun spilled through the windows of Sofia's flower shop, casting a golden glow over the rows of vibrant blooms. Luca hesitated at the door, reluctant to enter, yet unable to resist. Each time he came here, he felt a peace he had long forgotten. Sofia looked up from her arrangement of sunflowers and smiled warmly. "You are early," she said. "I wanted to see how you were," Luca replied, his voice softer than usual. The words felt strange on his tongue, but they carried a sincerity he could not hide. They spent the morning together among the flowers, talking quietly about ordinary things. Luca watched as Sofia tied ribbons around bouquets, her movements precise and graceful. He had seen violence and power in his life every day, but this simple act of care struck him in her way he could not explain. She noticed him lingering and laughed lightly. "You seem out of place here," she teased gently. "Perhaps," Luca admitted, "or perhaps I am exactly where I need to be." His gaze lingered on her, and he caught himself smiling, a rare gesture, even to himself. They shared small stories from their pasts. Sofia spoke of her childhood and the struggles of keeping her shop alive. Luca revealed fragments of himself, carefully chosen to show vulnerability without giving too much away. Each story built a bridge between them, connecting their lives across the gulf of their experiences. At one point, Sofia handed him a small bouquet of daisies she had arranged. "For you," she said simply, "to remind you that there are still simple joys in the world." Luca held the flowers with a care that surprised him. The gesture, so ordinary and tender, felt monumental. It was a reminder that kindness still existed, that life could offer something beyond fear and control. They laughed together at small jokes, shared quiet silences that were comfortable rather than awkward, and for the first time, Luca allowed himself to believe that moments of light could exist even in a dark world. When he left the shop that afternoon, he walked back into the city streets with a lighter step. The weight of his life as an enforcer remained, but for the first time in years, he carried a small warmth with him. It was fragile and easily extinguished, but it was enough to remind him that even the hardest hearts could feel. The memory of Sofia's smile stayed with him, a beacon in the shadows that surrounded his life. And though danger was never far, Luca found himself looking forward to each fleeting moment he could spend in her presence. Chapter 5. Danger Lurk's city had grown quieter that evening, but Luca sensed the tension before he even stepped onto the street. Every shadow seemed sharper, every movement more deliberate. A rival family had begun to make their presence known, and Luca knew that their attention would not stop at him. Anyone close to him could be at risk. He arrived at Sofia's flower shop just as she was closing for the day. Her smile greeted him, bright and unaware of the storm looming outside. "You are here again," she said lightly. "You must like flowers more than you let on." Luca forced a small smile. "I like them because you care for them," he said quietly. His gaze lingered on her as she packed the last of the arrangements. That evening, a message arrived that made his blood run cold. A meeting had been ambushed in the rival family's territory, and the situation was spiraling. Luca knew that anyone connected to him, including Sofia, could become a target. He clenched his fists, the familiar surge of control and violence filling him. Protecting her was no longer a choice, but a necessity. He stayed outside her shop, keeping watch until she finished closing. When they walked together, his eyes scanned every alley and doorway, alert to any sign of danger. Sofia noticed his vigilance, but did not ask questions. She trusted him, and he could not afford to let her down. Later, as they walked through the dimly lit streets, Luca spoke for the first time about the threat. "There are people who do not care who they hurt," he said. "I need you to stay close to me." Sofia nodded without hesitation. "I trust you," she said simply. Her calm acceptance strengthened his resolve. He had spent years commanding fear, yet this small trust from her meant more than any reputation he had built. They paused near a quiet park, and Luca allowed himself a moment to consider what he was feeling. The protective instincts that had always been part of his life as an enforcer now extended beyond business or power. They were personal, emotional, and terrifying. "I will keep you safe," he promised softly, almost to himself. He did not speak of the consequences if he failed, but the weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on him. For the first time, Luca realized that danger was not only external. Loving someone, even a little, made him vulnerable in ways he had never experienced. Yet he would rather face every threat than see her harmed. That night, as he returned to his apartment, Luca felt the weight of his dual life. Darkness surrounded him, but within it, the bond with Sofia shone as a fragile light. It was small and delicate, but it was enough to remind him of what he was fighting for. Chapter 6. Confessions and Fear. Sofia's hands trembled slightly as she arranged the flowers that morning. Luca had asked her to meet him at a quiet cafe, and she could sense that today would be different. The light-hearted conversations and small gestures they had shared were giving way to something heavier, something she was not yet prepared to face. Luca arrived, his usual calm presence shadowed by a tension she had not seen before. He sat across from her, his fingers steepled on the table, and for a moment, neither spoke. The air between them carried the weight of unspoken truths. "I need to tell you something," Luca began, his voice low and deliberate. "Something about my life that I cannot hide any longer." Sofia listened intently, her heart tightening. She had felt the hints of his darkness before, but hearing him speak made it real. Luca revealed pieces of his world, the violence he had enforced, the fear he commanded, and the dangers that lurked in every corner of his life. "I wanted to protect you from all of this," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "But hiding it from you would be a greater betrayal. You deserve the truth." Sofia's heart raced, a mixture of fear and understanding battling within her. She had never imagined that someone could live in such shadows and yet carry moments of tenderness so effortlessly. "I am scared," she admitted quietly. "But I care about you, Luca. That makes it harder, and yet somehow easier to understand." He reached across the table, taking her hand gently. "I never wanted anyone to see this side of me," he said. "I am not proud of it, but it is part of who I am. And still, I want something more. I want to be capable of love, of life beyond the darkness." Tears threatened in her eyes, but she smiled softly, squeezing his hand. "I see the man beneath the enforcer," she said, "and he is more than the fear he inspires. I see you, Luca, not the world you are trapped in." For the first time, Luca allowed himself to truly breathe. His walls, built from years of fear and necessity, were crumbling in the face of her understanding. He confessed his longing for a different life, one filled with peace, love, and ordinary joys he had never believed possible. Sofia listened, offering not judgment, but acceptance. Her presence, her compassion, became a balm to the wounds he had carried in silence. In that small cafe, amidst the clinking of cups and quiet conversations around them, Luca and Sofia found a fragile truth. Love was possible, even for someone like him. When they left the cafe, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the streets. Luca walked beside Sofia, protective yet unburdened in a way he had not felt in years. He had shared his hidden heart, and she had accepted it without fear. For the first time, Luca realized that vulnerability was not weakness. It was the path to something he had thought impossible, a life where love and safety could coexist. Chapter 7. A fragile trust. Mornings grew brighter as Luca and Sofia spent more time together. Each encounter deepened the fragile bond forming between them. Trust, once an impossible concept for Luca, became something he cautiously nurtured. Every smile, every shared glance, built a bridge over the darkness of his world. Luca began taking careful steps to secure a safer future for Sofia. He arranged for subtle protections around her shop, unseen and unobtrusive, while keeping her unaware. He monitored the streets and the people around her, quietly ensuring that the shadows of his life did not reach her. Sofia sensed the change, though she could not fully understand it. She noticed the way Luca seemed more at ease in her presence, the way he lingered in moments that once would have passed without notice. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a trust that was delicate yet growing stronger with each passing day. They spent afternoons walking through quiet parks, laughing softly at small jokes and sharing memories of their pasts. Luca began to reveal more of himself, not just the guarded, disciplined enforcer, but the man who remembered kindness and longed for connection. Sofia listened and shared in return, her openness creating a sanctuary in the midst of his turbulent life. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Luca stopped near a fountain and turned to her. "I cannot promise that the world around us will always be safe," he said quietly, "but I can promise that I will do everything to protect you." Sofia took his hand, her fingers curling around his. "I trust you, Luca," she said. "I trust you to see the man beneath the enforcer, and I trust you to care for us both." The words struck him with a force he had not expected. Trust was fragile, easily broken, yet here it was, offered freely by someone who saw beyond his walls. He felt a flicker of hope, fragile yet persistent, that perhaps he could protect this life they were building together. That night, as he walked back to his apartment, Luca allowed himself to imagine a future where danger did not constantly overshadow their moments. He could see small joys, ordinary happiness, and the possibility of a life with Sofia that was no longer defined solely by fear and control. Even in a world where shadows lingered, Luca realized that trust, once earned, could be a light strong enough to guide them both. It was fragile and required care, but it was a light he was determined to protect. Chapter 8. The storm breaks. Evening air was thick with tension. Luca had sensed it for days, a subtle shift in the city that told him danger was near. He moved with purpose through the streets, every step measured, every shadow scrutinized. For once, he could not shield himself entirely, and the thought of Sofia being caught in the storm made his chest tighten. Sofia waited at her shop, unaware of the threats closing in around them. Her calm presence had always been a balm to Luca, but tonight it only made the danger sharper. He had promised to protect her, yet there were forces beyond his control moving faster than he could anticipate. The betrayal came swiftly. A trusted ally, someone Luca had believed loyal, turned against him. A trap was set, and the rival family seized the opportunity. Luca arrived too late to prevent the chaos, his heart pounding as he realized the extent of the danger. Sofia was caught in the crossfire, and Luca's instincts erupted without hesitation. He moved with precision and force, clearing a path through the threat. Every calculated strike was fueled by fear and love, a combination he had never allowed himself to feel so openly. When the dust settled, they found themselves in a secluded alley, Sofia shaken but unharmed. Luca's hands trembled slightly as he took her into his arms. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice tight with emotion. Sofia nodded, her grip on him firm. "I am with you," she said. "That is enough." Her courage and calm steadied him in a way that no plan or strategy ever could. He realized that protection was not only about strength and violence, but also about presence and trust. In her eyes, he saw a reflection of what he truly wanted to fight for, not power or control, but life and love. They spent the night moving carefully through the city, avoiding the remnants of the trap and ensuring no one followed. The storm had tested them, and they had survived not because of Luca alone, but because of their bond and their ability to rely on each other. As dawn approached, Luca allowed himself a rare moment of stillness. Sofia's hand rested in his, her presence grounding him. For the first time, he understood that love was a force as powerful as fear, and it demanded courage and vulnerability in equal measure. Even in the shadows of his violent world, Luca felt a glimmer of hope. The storm had broken, but their connection remained intact, stronger for the trial it had endured. He vowed silently that no threat would ever sever the fragile yet unshakable trust they had built. Chapter 9. Choosing a new path. City felt different that morning. The shadows seemed less suffocating, the streets less threatening. Luca walked beside Sofia, each step a reminder of what he was determined to protect. The storm of the past weeks had forced him to confront the reality of his life. He could continue as he had, feared and respected, but empty. Or he could take a risk, one that might cost him everything, but offer a chance at something more. He made his decision. Leaving the life of an enforcer behind would not be simple, and it would not be without danger. But Luca understood that it was the only way to truly safeguard the life he wanted with Sofia. He could no longer allow fear and violence to dictate every moment. Sofia noticed a change in him that day. His movements were lighter, his eyes calmer. "You seem different," she said, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I am," Luca admitted. "I am choosing a new path, one where you are safe, and we can build something together." The words were heavy with meaning, yet spoken with a quiet confidence that made her heart swell. Sofia reached for his hand, holding it firmly. "I will be with you," she said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Luca felt a warmth spread through him that had little to do with the sun or the streets. It was a feeling he had long denied himself, a mixture of relief, hope, and love. For the first time, he imagined a life where danger was not constant, where laughter and tenderness could coexist with strength and protection. He began to make practical changes immediately. Luca secured his affairs, dismantling the networks he had controlled, and ensuring that the people who could harm them were either removed or neutralized. Each step brought risk, yet each step also brought the possibility of peace. Sofia watched him with quiet admiration, understanding that the choice he had made required more courage than any fight he had faced in the streets. "You are brave," she said softly. "Bravery is meaningless without something worth protecting," Luca replied. He looked at her, the woman who had awakened the hidden heart inside him. "And you are worth everything." As they walked through the city together, the weight of the past still lingered, but it no longer defined them. Luca had chosen love over fear, trust over isolation, and a future with Sofia over the world he had once ruled through intimidation. For the first time, he allowed himself to envision ordinary moments, quiet mornings, shared meals, laughter, and peace. The enforcer's life had shaped him, but it would no longer control him. With Sofia beside him, Luca felt the fragile beginnings of freedom and happiness, a life they would build together one step at a time. Chapter 10. The 𝐼𝐸𝐫𝐿. City felt alive with possibility as Luca and Sofia walked hand in hand through the streets bathed in morning light. The shadows of the past had not vanished completely, but they no longer held power over them. Each step they took together was a choice to embrace life, love, and hope. Luca paused near a quiet fountain, watching the sunlight dance on the water. He turned to Sofia, his eyes soft and open in a way he had never allowed before. "I am no longer hiding," he said quietly. "All of me is yours now. The man beneath the enforcer, every part one once kept in darkness." Sofia smiled, her fingers brushing against his. "I have always seen you," she said. "The strength, the fear, and the heart you tried to hide. I never wanted anything else." For the first time, Luca allowed himself to feel fully exposed and fully safe at the same time. He realized that the greatest power he had ever known was not fear, control, or violence. It was love, trust, and the willingness to share his life with someone who cared for him deeply. They spent the day walking through the city, laughing, talking, and simply being together. The ordinary moments felt extraordinary because they were earned through struggle, courage, and vulnerability. Luca felt a weight lift from his chest, replaced by a warmth that spread through him with every glance from Sofia. As evening approached, they returned to the flower shop. Sofia showed him her favorite blooms, laughing softly as she shared memories tied to each one. Luca watched her, absorbing every detail, every expression, and he felt a surge of gratitude and awe. This life, fragile and beautiful, was what he had fought to protect. That night, as they sat together beneath the city lights, Luca spoke quietly. "I have spent my life hiding behind fear, but with you, I am free. You have shown me that even the hardest heart can love." Sofia rested her head on his shoulder, her warmth grounding him. "And you have shown me that love can survive anything," she said. The enforcer's hidden heart was no longer a secret. It had been revealed, nurtured, and accepted. Luca knew that challenges would come, as they always did, but with Sofia beside him, he could face anything. The fear that had once defined his life had been replaced by hope, and the emptiness he had carried for years was filled with love. Together, they embraced the future, fragile yet strong, full of possibilities, and defined not by shadows but by light. The city around them buzzed with life, but in that quiet moment, Luca and Sofia found their own world, one where hearts could heal, trust could flourish, and love could thrive.